This is Expedition Texas, the podcast, presented by Crazy Water. Hello once again, and welcome to Expedition Texas, the podcast. Hi folks, I'm Bob Mullen, your host here for the podcast, and Expedition Texas on TV, where we explore lost history in Texas. We're kind of your supplemental information here each and every week on the podcast, and we've got some great things to tell you about every week, and it's brought to you every single time by our friends at Crazy Water, the best thing to ever come out of the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas. You can get Crazy Water on the bottled water shelf in your favorite store, so be sure to check out Crazy Water, and if you're ever in Mineral Wells, Texas, visit the famous water company there and get your own case to take home from right there in Mineral Wells, Texas. We're also presented each week by the East Texas Oil Museum at Kilgore College. We'll be telling you more about them a little bit later on, and they helped us out on a series of special episodes on Expedition Texas. We don't normally have 3 episodes about the same topic, but this past month we've had 3 episodes covering different aspects of the East Texas oil field, and there's plenty of stories to mine from there, or drill for. I don't know what you would rather do, but there's plenty of stories in the East Texas oil field, and so we've been talking a lot about that, and of course the East Texas Oil Museum helped us out with that, so thanks to Olivia Moore. She's been a guest on the podcast in the past, but we have with us in studio right now another friend of mine who is coming all the way from Terrell, Texas, to visit with us. She is with the Terrell Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Center. Please welcome Sharon Harper. Hello, Sharon.
Hey, Bob. How are you?
Doing fine.
Good.
Well, you and I have been working together on Expedition Texas stuff.
Yeah.
For quite a while.
Yeah.
We've done some stories in Terrell. We've been to Terrell a lot of times for our sister program, Main Street Reborn, which is an online program that features businesses that are helping bring Main Street back to life. And downtown in Terrell is just an amazing, vibrant place. I love it.
It is. It is really the hub of the town. It kind of carries the spirit of our community.
And, you know, Terrell gets a lot of attention from interstate travelers because it's one of the places Buc-ee's decided to go in early on. Yeah. And that area around Buc-ee's has just grown up. And I think a lot of people just think that's Terrell, but it's not.
No.
It's not the only part of Terrell anyway.
Right. It is a great part of Terrell,
Yeah.
and it's great out there, but it's definitely not the historic district.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of that. I'll have people, we'll meet them, when we do trade shows and things like that, and they're like, oh, we've been to Terrell, we've stopped at Buc-ee's. I'm like, oh, you haven't been to Terrell.
Yeah.
You have to visit the historic downtown and see the museums and the incredible history that's there.
You know, every time I come through there, it seems like, especially here lately, and that you may have your hand in this, I don't know, but it seems like there are new things either going down or coming up that are really making downtown look better, making downtown more vibrant, a lot more vital and active. And every time we've come to do Main Street Reborn down there, it just seems like there's a lot of excitement.
There is. There's businesses coming in. A lot of the older buildings are getting some, tender love and care, and being retrofitted and getting great businesses in there. We're going to have a French bistro that's going to open in January.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
Lula Mays, and I'm sure we'll have you feature it in
yeah,
Main
we're
Street
doing some
Reborn.
this year, right?
Yes,
yeah.
we are. We are. We have a great new diner called Soldier's Daughter's Diner. Great home cooking.
Cool.
So we have, unique shopping. We have great restaurants. We have 2 museums. So, a lot to do in down in Terrell, plus the murals. And the murals kind of tell our history. A lot of them aren't history related, but the biggest portion are connected to the history of the town.
Well, let's see. The last Main Street Reborn that dropped, I believe it was last week, and you can search this out and find it on Facebook and YouTube. We went to the Terrell Heritage Museum, and that's in an old Carnegie Library building.
Yes, that was the building that raised me.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I would spend my summers in there. My grandmother lived 2 blocks down, and I would go there, and I would get a book a day. Then I'd go back. Then I'd go back to my grandmother's house, read the book. Then the next day I'd be back at the library. It used to be a library. Of course, the Carnegies built it, and I believe it was 1907 or something like that. I'm probably wrong on that date. But in the early 1900s, the women's service clubs kind of campaigned for the Carnegie to build the building there, and they did. And it was the center of Terrell for a long time. So we're loved that we have one of the few remaining Carnegie buildings.
Right.
And it's getting some love and care right now as well. And there's a new curator, Jessica King, and she is just amazing. Or she's the executive director. And she's doing a great job.
Very cool. Well, that there's another building that we featured. We did a series of episodes. I believe it was the third or fourth season. It was early on, where we went from one end of Highway 80 all the way to the other end of Highway 80, and on the original path of what was named Highway 80. Kind of that story also kind of took in some of the Bankhead Highway story because it's all kind of the same thing. But we started in Wascom, Texas, and went all the way as much of the original roadbed as we could find out to the New Mexico state line. And when we came through Terrell, we went into a building that at the time was called Hard Bodies. It was a gym.
Yes.
And the last time I was there, it looks like it has all new windows now.
It does. It does. That building has been purchased by a development company out of Dallas. It's a couple. The projects in downtown Terrell are kind of their personal, pet projects. They love the downtown area and they love redoing old buildings. She recycles all kinds of like period pieces. So you'll see a lot of that on the buildings that the Piñas accent realty. When they redo a building, you'll see a lot of those accents. But no, and that is a great building. It's our Anderson building.
Yeah, and that building, when we went in there and toured it for that episode, this has been a long time ago now, but there were like the doctor and dentist offices, and wasn't it like a hospital or something?
It was once upon a time, in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I hit the microphone.
It's okay.
But no, in the early 1900s, it was a hospital.
Wow.
So there's all the stories about there's ghosts in there. There's some spooky stories about that building. You had people that when it was a gym on the second floor where the hospital was, there in the women's and men's shower room, you'd have people that wouldn't go up there because they swore there was a ghost up there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have all of those kind of spooky things. And the Ghost Hunter Tour in Terrell kind of goes through that and plays up on that history as well. So a lot of fun. But it is a great building.
Do we know what their plans are for the building?
I don't know for sure. I can't say, because you never know.
Yeah.
But we're hoping to maybe make it a boutique hotel.
Oh, that would be so cool.
If we can get a flag, one of the flags for a boutique hotel to come in there.
Yeah.
Or Airbnbs.
Yeah.
But
that would be very cool. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how much difference those new windows make on that building. That's
right.
It looks great. I mean, it's the bones are definitely solid on that.
They are. That is a wonderful building. Now, the next building over, I guess the next block over, there's a building, used to be Community Junction, for anyone that knows. It's 115 Eastmore, the one that has the hummingbird mural.
Yes.
The Camilla mural is on that. There's actually an Airbnb on the top floor of that.
Okay.
So we have one Airbnb unit in downtown Terrell. So y'all need to check that out because it's beautiful.
Awesome.
It really is.
Well, I know that, so I'm trying to think of things that we've featured on Expedition Texas that folks might remember. So there are those things. We also went in an episode a couple of years ago to Ham Orchards out there. It was
Ham's is amazing.
Yeah, and that was kind of a funny thing because we went during the summer. They operate during the summer, but we don't air new episodes during the summer. So we sat on that episode for quite a while, and we finally ended up releasing it as a special episode during the summer that year, just so that it could air while they were open, and people could actually go and see it once it aired.
That is probably the most asked question for the Chamber and for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. We get calls year-round saying, when will Ham's be open?
Yeah.
It kind of depends on the orchard.
Yeah.
If the peaches aren't quite ready, they'll hold it off. But it's always sometime in May till the 1st of August, like around the first few weeks of August when everyone goes back to school. But they've added blackberries. They have all kinds of produce in there. It's an amazing little country store.
And I want to get into kind of the main event part of that episode, which was the British Flight Training School. That is a very cool part of Terrell's history, and kind of give folks an idea of what exactly that is, and as much of the story as you can recall on that.
Okay, so before the United States went into World War II, of course, Great Britain was under attack, and they were being, bombed almost every evening, and they had the blackouts and everything. The Germans ruled the air over England, and Churchill knew that he had to train more pilots. So they first went to Canada because, of course, that was part of the, Great Britain, United Kingdom. So they took the pilots to Canada, but they couldn't get all the flight hours they needed because of the weather. It was so cold.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So they started, but at that time, America did not want to get into the war at all. So they did make an agreement finally with Roosevelt. They started looking for facilities for places to have training schools in the southern United States.
Okay.
Terrell already had a little crop dusting airport.
Okay.
So some very great minds in Terrell, they thought, if we can offer that up to the government, we can all come together and we can pay for that. Buy out the gentleman that has the airfield, where he trained crop dusters. If we can buy that, we can go to the government and say, hey, you can put that school here. So it was really forward thinking by city leaders and by state leaders and the citizenry of Terrell during that time. So they started training the pilots in Terrell. They would come in on the train, from Dallas. I guess they would probably fly into Dallas, and they would or bust in, and then they would take a train to Terrell. They would get off at the depot, and they would train there. This is an interesting history, too, that we just found out. Our cemetery, when they started going through old records, they noticed that the first thing the British government did when they started making the agreement with Terrell, the first thing they asked is, if any accidents happen, where will we bury our dead?
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so the first thing they did from the first course of action was to buy a portion of the, a little small lot in the Terrell Oakland Cemetery so that they'd have a place to enter, because they knew they were training pilots, right? They knew accidents were going to happen.
Right.
So it's kind of sad, but anyway, so they started training the pilots. The amazing part of that story, we were talking to the gentleman from the museum just 2 weeks ago, and they were like, what do you think's the most unique thing about the museum? And I'm like, it's unique that they came here and that they trained here, and it was such a success that they added 10 more schools throughout the Southwest.
Okay.
That's great. But what I really like to see and for people to talk about is how Terrell came to their aid, how Terrell took those young pilots. I mean, these boys were coming. They were 18, 19, 20. I mean, if they were 21, they were probably an old man, right?
Right, yeah.
Considered an old man learning to fly. They were young, and they were leaving the world that they knew. Yeah. That was in shambles. Can you imagine leaving your family over there and knowing that they're being bombed every night and then coming here and training? Yeah. Yeah. But they really did. They took them in. They would go to church with these families. They would, on Sundays, they'd go and have dinner with these families. And a lot of those guys ended up marrying girls from Terrell. So they would come back and marry their sweetheart, or their sweetheart would go to England and marry them. So there was a lot of families that are Brit American, during that time. So I think that's what's really unique and wonderful about that is how Terrell really opened their arms to those young pilots that were coming in, and how hospitable the community is, and it still is. But they trained there, and then when another interesting thing about that school is, so this is all happening before the United States gets into the war. It's before Pearl Harbor. Yeah. And then Pearl Harbor happens, and all the men leave, because all the American men that were training, and, they went to war, right? Mm-hmm. So they had to call upon the women of Terrell, to do some of those jobs, like to do the trainer, the link trainer. So it's really, when you start looking at how the community all came in, my grandfather was a dispatcher. Really? During that time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of the men that weren't war age, that were older, they would dispatch.
And so I guess it was because of all this, that's why there's a municipal, is that a municipal airport in Terrell?
Yes, it is. And that's actually what built it.
Okay. And now at that airport, there is also a museum.
Yes, there is.
Dedicated to this flight training school.
And it's great.
So,
and they have the link trainer.
Yeah.
And they have a picture of the women that trained them. And there's also a book, if any of your listeners like to read, which I'm sure they do, if they like this program. It's called Girls of Flight City. It's a historical romance. So it's not a hard read. It's not one of those hard, history reads.
Yeah.
And they can get that, and they can get a little bit of the history of it. Of course, in the book, it's set in Terrence, Texas, but it's Terrell, Texas. They even describe the town, and it's kind of like, oh, yeah, you're talking about Terrell. But it's a historical romance based on that history. So it's a great read. I think the author's name is Lorraine Heath. But Girls of Flight City, highly recommend it. And then when you go see the museum, it just kind of brings it to life that much more.
You talked about that trainer that's there. That's actually something that they could get in, and it's almost like an early, like old school simulator type of thing, right?
Yes, very much so. Now you can't get in it now. But because it's too fragile. But they would actually almost kind of like a big cardboard box, that they would get in.
That was my first airplane. Come to think of it.
Me too, right? But then also they would lay over, when they would do training flights, they would fly from Terrell to Houston. And for the pilots, they would overlay a map that was Paris or London to Paris. Because it's almost it's almost the exact distance between London and Paris as it is from Terrell to Houston. So it's some exciting history.
Was that the thing where where they're flying? Because we did the story on the museum, but it's been a while since I've been there. Was that the same unit that also sort of charted their flight on an actual some sort of layout of, like, I don't know if it was a map, but maybe some sort of layout that showed where they were going and all that?
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, in the museum they actually have that. They have like like a North Texas kind of map, or from the northeastern side of Texas, and then they've overlaid Europe on top of it, because that's how they would train, so that they would know they're going from this part, they're taking off in the London area and they're going to this area or that. But they could do those same miles, like it could be from, like I said, from Terrell to Houston, or Terrell to Tyler, or what I mean. They could map out those distances. So that was really cool. I think everyone got a little creative in that training, and they had to train quickly. But we do have 19 cadets and 19 cadets and 2 instructors that are buried in Terrell.
Okay.
So another interesting history is that's actually British soil, because when soldiers are interred.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Yes.
In a cemetery, that becomes their country's soil.
Oh, okay. I see.
So we have a little bit of Britain in Terrell.
That's right. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't. We had visited those graves originally, and I didn't know that's interesting. I didn't know that, though. That's cool.
And this Sunday is Remembrance Day. So we have British Bash on Saturday from 11 to 4 at Historic Downtown Terrell to celebrate. Every year we have it. So I know this is going to air after that date, but we every year on the second Saturday we have British Bash, which celebrates that history, and we have some fun stuff. We even have a guy coming to exhibit cricket. So we're going to be playing cricket games in downtown Terrell. Who'd have thunk it? Yeah. But the next day is Remembrance Day, and there is a ceremony at the cemetery, at that lot at Oakland Cemetery.
Awesome.
Yeah, and there's usually British, someone from the British consulate is there. So
awesome. So
it's a really, really neat history, and that's what I like about it. It's so unique.
Yeah, it is, and it's something you can still go and see. There's so much that's preserved there at that museum. So definitely go by and check that out. Do you have a way that folks can get more information on museum hours and all that kind of thing?
Yes, you could go on Google search and do #1 British Flying Training School Museum, and you can go to their website. You can go to terrelltexas.com, spell out Texas, or you can go to discoverterrell.com, and you can find all of that information. I do want to say something else, too, and you told me I could be long on these answers,
absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So I'm taking you up on that.
No restraint on that at all
I'm very passionate about the VFTS Museum. It is just such a great little museum. It's totally a gem. But the some of the board chairman of the board, he actually went to England and he interviewed one of the cadets.
Really?
There's still a few cadets still living.
Yeah, they're getting on up there though now, right?
99. I believe he's 98 or 99. But anyway, and their little video that they show to kind of tell the history before you tour the museum, he's actually in there doing the welcome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, and he is the cutest thing. Absolutely. But, and another neat thing, too, this is a little personal because my grandfather was 6'5", and all of these British flyers were tiny. So I love to see the pictures of him when he was the dispatcher because I could always find him in the pictures because he's this huge man and and the pilots are all little.
You could see him above the rest of the rest of the group.
But anyway, it's great. Of course, go back to just how Terrell took them in, and even what Terrell experienced during that time. I mean, people don't think about it, but Townsend, Texas, had to black out as well.
Really?
Yeah. So during that time, I don't know if it was just Terrell because they had the school and they were afraid if someone found out I don't know if that was the reason why, but Terrell would have to totally black out. Wow. And they would have wardens that would go around and make sure that everyone had their curtains pulled and that it was complete darkness.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see that's part of it I didn't hear when we were there before. I learn something new every time we do this podcast. I love it. We're going to talk more about Terrell with Sharon from the Terrell Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center here in just a little bit. Not only about some things that are history related, of course, which we'll do every time here on the podcast, but we're also going to get into some things that are coming up that you can be a part of in Terrell that are just around the corner. And of course, every year on Expedition Texas, we always we always promoted the big festivals and things like that. So I want to talk about those kind of things. What all is coming down the road? I want to talk a little bit about the railroad because that's just such a prominent part of Terrell, and just about any town that the railroad came through, that was what made the town. And so we want to go back and talk some of that deeper history about Terrell here in just a little bit. But first, let me tell you about our title sponsor here on Expedition Texas, the podcast. They are Crazy Water, the waters of mineral wells. Texas have been making folks feel good for decades and decades, inside and out, since 1881. Maybe it's because of the flavor. Maybe it's because there just might have been maybe a crazy woman that drank from the well and suddenly wasn't so crazy anymore. Either way, you'd be crazy not to try it. Water as nature intended it, with minerals and electrolytes infused by Mother Nature and not some factory. Check it out, Crazy Water. I've got my number 4 here. We got Sharon set up with some number 2 over there, Crazy Water, and that's based on the amount of mineral content that's in it, Sharon. And that is, I've got number 4. They say has the most in it, and I like the flavor of it, so I always have a number 4. But we're going to hear from Olivia Moore at the East Texas Oil Museum right now, and be right back in just a moment with Sharon Harper from Terrell, Texas, in just a moment.
Do you love history? Do you ever wonder about the way things were almost 100 years ago in East Texas? Visit the Kilgore College East Texas Oil Museum to learn about the men and women who lived during the East Texas oil boom of the 1930s. Step back in time and visit Boomtown, USA, the life-size diorama of a town booming in oil. Step inside the general store and visit the shopkeeper. Head to the theater to watch the Great Oil Boom movie. And no visit would be complete without taking a quick journey on the elevator ride to the center of the earth to learn about all of the geology of the East Texas oil field. The East Texas Oil Museum is now open Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with last entry at 4 p.m. For more information, visit kilgore.edu/oil museum or find us on all the socials.
Welcome back. It's Expedition Texas, the podcast. I'm Bob Malden. We're here with Sharon Harper from the Terrell Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Center. We've talked a lot about the the number one British flying training school, which was what opened the door for the British to come and fly and learn to fly right here in Texas. And so, very cool program that got started up a long time ago, I guess during World War II, before we got into it, though. But there's a way that folks, especially if they like geocaching and doing all that they can learn more about Terrell's history today.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. You just download the app, geocaching app, and you can. It's like a little game, a little scavenger hunt throughout Terrell. We have 12. We're hoping to add more, but right now we have 12, and it's just a neat way to kind of learn the history. And then we've got a really cool collectible coin that you get at the end.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Another little scavenger hunt thing is looking for all those murals downtown.
Definitely.
Tell me about the murals and the program to do that.
The murals started, there was an art alliance that first started doing it, and they worked with the Terrell Heritage Society, and they just started painting. I guess you've got to paint.
Yeah.
Painting murals of some of the historic things from Terrell's past that people just really don't know about, like the first automobile ride in Texas, the first horseless carriage. The first trip was from Terrell to the State Fair of Texas. Colonel Green, who ran the Midland Railroad. So, people don't know that history. Mm-hmm. And so there's a mural that tells that story. Terrell had 3 theaters, three movie theaters during the silent era all the way through. And like nickel westerns and all of those, my parents still call them the show. So right. When you go to the show, they mean the movies. But anyway, we have a mural on the back of one of those theaters that kind of plays homage to that. Frank Ray, a famous artist that did Western Western art. That was what he did, and there is one there that celebrates his artwork. And if you look really close, that mural is called The Herd. And if you look really close to it, you'll see in the corner, you'll see an artist sitting down there painting with a parasol on top of it. So it's actually Frank Ray.
He worked himself into his artwork.
He worked it. Well, he didn't paint it, but of course, it came hours later. Years later. But anyway, that's
awesome.
That is that's one of the murals. We have a whole lot, and then we've got newer murals that. Like the Jamie Foxx mural, that's part of Terrell's history, right?
Terrell,
we have an Oscar winner.
Jamie Foxx, yes.
Yes.
Oscar winner for what? Ray, wasn't it? That he won the Oscar?
Yes, he won for Ray.
It's amazing. He's a Terrell. So did you know him back when he was there?
Oh, yeah, I knew when he was Eric Bishop, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was a year younger than me. I hate to say that. But someone's younger than me. But, went to Terrell High School with him. He was the quarterback of the football team and all-around clown. He was entertaining everyone when we were young.
And you'd have to be, because if you think about his early days in Living Color, he was hilarious.
He's hilarious.
Yeah,
he really would. He would always keep us rolling. Yeah. But he was also so talented. I mean, he would play the piano. When he got the Oscar for playing Ray Charles, we were like, that's not a surprise. We always got Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder a whole lot.
Oh, really?
Piano. Yeah.
So he would do Ray Charles and stuff. That's amazing that started that early.
Yeah, he was real good at that, playing both of those early on. So
wow.
So he was a natural for that. He'd been practicing since he was a young child for that one. But he's extremely talented. I know a lot of it, because he's so funny and the comedian in him that it kind of hides the true talent, because he is a musician, and he can sing. So there's an act. So he's kind of a triple or quadruple threat there. So.
Any other notable figures from Terrell, Texas that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh,
I mean, he kind of takes the cake, but
he really does as far as that. I mean, we've had some people that played sports and did a few other things, but he's probably the most notable. We have Randy Snow. He was a Paralympian, and there's a mural that celebrates his life as well. So some neat characters in Terrell's past. So.
Definitely. Well, I want to go way, way, way back now, and talk about, because so many times when we have cities that we feature on Expedition Texas, and there's a train that comes through.
Yeah.
It'll
shake you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's a part of, and I guess the people that are there every day, they sometimes kind of get tired of the train. But if they think about it, a lot of times the reason those cities are there and prosper as much as they do, and originally came to be, is because the railroad made the decision to come through there. How much does the railroad?
Reason I'm here is
Really?
Because the railroad came through.
Wait a minute. How does that happen? So tell me about the impact of the railroad on not just Terrell, now we're understanding, but also on Sharon Harper from Terrell. So let's talk about the railroad in Terrell, Texas.
Yeah. No, my great-grandfather, his brother, came with the railroad company, hired him to come and open a general store. Because, they'd always have to bring a town with them as they were building.
Okay.
I don't know if you've
I guess
ever
they
seen.
have to build along as they go.
Yeah, kind of that series Hell on Wheels.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Right.
It wasn't that rowdy. I hope not. But anyway, but his brother, my great-grandfather's brother, was hired by the railroad to come and put in a general store because they had to have supplies for the workers.
Sure.
And for the families that followed the workers. Mm-hmm. So he was one of the merchants that came in early on, and my great-grandfather was like 17. And
really?
He followed his brother here. Yeah.
Oh, and
so from Tennessee.
Yeah. And
so,
thus, Sharon is here.
Exactly.
Well,
and he sat behind my mother at my great-grandmother at the Methodist church. And the story is that he sat behind her and he said, "That's the girl I'm going to marry." He didn't even know her yet.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
So,
what a great story.
A lot of fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
So was there anything in Terrell before he put the general store here?
Yes,
there?
Of course, before the railroad. So there was Robert Terrell was a surveyor. And Robert Terrell was hired to survey the area from King's Fort, which is Kaufman.
Okay.
They called it the King's Fort area. So he was hired to come and survey that area of Texas around Kaufman County. And so he came, and then he surveyed it, and then he decided he liked the land. So I don't know how he obtained the land. I don't know if it was one of those you just stake claim and it's yours, or if he bought it. I'm not really sure how that worked. But anyway, he was the first settler in Terrell, and he built a round house. Legend is that he built the round house so that he could see Indians, know what I mean, all the way around.
Uh-huh.
But then some people say that's just lore, that actually the round houses were a form of architecture back then. Didn't really take off, but some people built them just for airflow through the house. So don't know if it was the more fun story of the Indians
right.
or the airflow, the functionality of the airflow through the building. But anyway, that roundhouse, Robert Terrell's roundhouse, is still in Terrell.
Really?
Yes.
Where is that?
It is on Southwestern Christian College's campus.
Okay.
I'd have to look and see the address, but if you do our geo tour, or if you look at terrelltexas.com under historic buildings, you can see that, and it has his historical marker out in front of it.
That's awesome.
Yes, so it's still there. It needs a little bit of love, but it's still there, and you can see that building. It's really cool because it is an octagon. I mean, it's just it's really great. But no, the railroad did. It came through in 1873. But Robert Terrell, Mr. Nash, and there's one more, and I should probably remember his name, and I'm not having it right now. But it was three gentlemen. They all came together. They gathered money, and they took the money to, I believe, Seguin, and they paid the railroad to come through Terrell.
Okay.
They gave them the land, or they used that money to purchase the land, and then they gifted that land to the railroad so that the railroad would be insured to come through Terrell and to build a depot there. So it was there again. It's those forward thinkers in Terrell's history, and in that made it. It was a real bustling. It was kind of a cultural center. A lot of poets and artists, and people don't really realize that, because Dallas always got the attention.
Yeah.
But early on, Terrell was a hub, and it had everything that you needed from my grandparents and my parents said at that time up through the 50s and 60s, anything that you needed. You really didn't have to go anywhere.
There's something I noticed about Highway 80, and you may not have the answer to this, but that everywhere that the original 4-lane 2-sided part of Highway 80 was, I think it may even went back to the Bankhead Highway. The railroad was right beside it.
Yes.
Was there a thought given to? I guess at that time, traveling by car wasn't really the thing. So I guess the Bankhead came in to I guess join alongside the railroad, since I guess the path was kind of already there, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know a lot of that history, but when you look at old pictures, it is a dirt road that's running parallel with the railroad. Yeah. So I think it became a natural, and that's where all of the general stores popped up. That's where the hotels popped up. That's where. I read a thing from a gentleman. He was in his early 90s, back in 1920, and he told the story of Terrell in his beginning days. And evidently, it was very wild and woolly right at first. Because, there again, it's railroad town, right? Yeah. But he said in there, any vice known to man you could find in Terrell, Texas. At that time. So there were a lot of saloons, gaming houses, and things like that. So, Terrell was just a typical railroad town, but I think all of that, all of the saloons and the hotels, and just like what you see on the old westerns, just ran parallel with that. And then I think when they came in and started putting in roads, that was an automatic. Now, an interesting thing is the streets that aren't parallel with Moore Avenue. It was Mr. Moore was the third. Why did I forget him?
So I started to ask that, but I'm like, okay,
Yeah, you should have helped me out a little bit.
I started to ask about that.
Moore, Nash, and Terrell that came together. And it's the reason that the railroad ended up coming through Terrell, and they built a depot there. But Mr. Nash, so Moore is named after Mr. Moore. Mm-hmm. So when they were laying down and they were mapping out the city of Terrell, that was one of those agreements. We'll name this Moore. Mm-hmm. And then Mr. Nash had 3 nieces, Frances, Catherine, and Adelaide. So the ones that run, that intersect with Moore are Adelaide, Catherine, and Frances.
I love it.
So how cool is that?
Yeah.
So, everybody got a little something. Those 3 men got a little bit of something. Of course, Mr. Terrell got Terrell named after him. So I guess they all got a little something to live on.
Definitely.
Way past them.
Well, so the Highway 80 is still Highway 80 when it comes through Terrell. Of course, it is named Moore when it comes through Terrell, and then it goes on, and then basically what is named Highway 80 ends at I-30 in Dallas. But if you I have to give you a DVD later of that. We have a DVD where we did stop in Terrell. It was one of the earliest things we did, and we follow Highway 80 through all those towns where it went through. But it's called 80 Business or I-20 Business Route or whatever. It's not called 80 anymore. But it's cool that you guys still have an active, functioning part of it. It's still, I think, to me, that's cool. Because that's like Texas's Route 66.
It is. It really is.
And you guys have it right through, and definitely one of the more robust downtown areas along that route.
Well, and what's cool is it's only going to get better. There's a lot of plans. Terrell has a lot of plans. Actually, they're looking. I don't know if it's going to actually work or not, because when you're working with the railroad is king, right? Mm-hmm. And
they think so anyway.
But we're hoping to do quiet zones. We don't know if that will actually happen or not, but that would be really cool, especially for visitors and for businesses to have outside patios. And
you guys have some cool buildings down there too that I've wanted to learn more about. There's one, I believe it's right by the Coal Mountain Steakhouse. There's an overpass that runs almost right on the building.
That's the old water treatment plant.
Old water treatment plant. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that building is amazing. Of course, the building that the steakhouse is in is really cool. What would you say is probably your favorite that still exists? Old building in Terrell?
Wow, that one's really hard. I like the Brin building.
Okay. What's the story on that one?
I don't know.
Where is it? So give me some.
Brin building is, let me see. It's Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
It's Catherine and Moore. It's the one that has the circus mural.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. And that mural tells the story of when the circus came through. I think it was in 1901.
Mm-hmm.
They said, I don't know how they got these numbers, but they said over 10,000 people, from all over would come in because Terrell was always a stop for the circus because of the railroad and the and the depot.
Uh-huh.
So they would offload the animals and then they would do a parade through downtown Terrell.
That's a lost art there. That's so cool.
Yeah. So they would parade to where they were going to have, but not necessarily all those people went to the circus, but they all would come in. Because they didn't have to pay anything for the parade, right?
Yeah, sure.
The parade was free entertainment.
See the animals
they
and
could
all
see
that.
the animals and everything. They said that all of those old buildings had mezzanines, kind of overlooking.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they were full of people. Actually, one collapsed that day, and some people got hurt.
Oh,
but
no.
because of course, didn't have safety regulations like you do now. Probably way overloaded it.
Yeah.
But they said over 10,000 people were in downtown Terrell to watch that
My
circus
goodness.
parade. So anyway, that mural's there again to play
cool.
tribute to that history. Yeah.
Well, let's talk. We got a few minutes left here. I want to talk a little bit about some of the big events that are coming up in Terrell. Of course, we always talk about the Jubilee and the big one that comes up. That's April, right?
Yes, that is April. This year, it'll be April 24th through the 27th.
Okay. And that's a little bit of everything out there. That there's like rides and vendors.
It does. We actually have the same carnival company that does the State Fair of Texas.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
It's Tally Amusement. So, as good as you can get with a carnival.
Yeah.
So that's really good. We'll have pig races.
I love it.
That's fun. That's always fun with Swifty Swan.
Uh-huh.
And then we have entertainment throughout the day. We have local artists and we have some, even from the Dallas area that come out and play. But anyway, it's just a fun weekend in Terrell.
Yeah.
It is 4 days. We have a lot of food. A lot of families. It's a tradition for most families to get out and do that.
Was it earlier this year or last year you guys kind of rolled out the red carpet for the eclipse? When was that?
That was in April.
That was this year, wasn't it?
Yes,
wow.
it was. Well, it was April of 24. Yes.
Yeah, we had a camera out there catching all the action, and
they kind of got some video of me. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I
was singing way too loud.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. We had dueling pianos.
Well, I had also there's Jeff Miller. I think you sent him up through a scuttle hole on a building.
I did.
Yeah,
that was the hummingbird.
He showed me. Was that? He showed me like where he went through, and I'm like, wow, that's dedication right there.
Yeah, and you don't need to tell anyone where that is because that's the actual building that has the Airbnb unit. So I don't want people coming and visiting and going up through the scuttle hole. Yeah.
Yes.
So we need to keep that a secret.
Forget y'all heard that. So anyway, this I believe is going to drop on November 20th. So let's talk about from there on what you guys have going on the rest of the year in Terrell.
So of course Christmas is a big deal in Terrell. We are going to have the tour of homes the first weekend in December. The Social Science Club does that. This year on the tour is the Warren Mansion. It's just been redone. It has new owners, and they are ready to show off their home. Ooh. It is absolutely breathtaking. So I would highly recommend coming to Terrell on the 7th and doing the tour of homes because definitely the Warren Mansion is a must-see.
Awesome.
And then there's also other really great houses that are on the tour. I can't remember off the top, but as soon as they said the Warren Mansion, I was like, I'm there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she's actually the family that bought the Warren Mansion is the same family that's doing the French Bistro in downtown.
Well, there you go.
So yeah,
awesome.
So they're really integrating themselves into
plugging
Terrell.
right into Terrell.
Yeah,
that's great.
They really are. So we're really excited about that. So we have the tour of homes on the 7th. On the 13th of December, we have Christmas in downtown Terrell. that Friday evening, we're going to have our city tree lighting, a lot of free events for kids. So if you kind of live in that area or you want to drive out that evening, we're going to have a lot for families to do, and then have an old, small town tree lighting ceremony with elementary choir singing and nothing sophisticated, just small town charm, right?
Yeah.
So we're real excited about that. And then the next day is our parade. A lot of towns don't have the parades anymore. I mean, I don't think TxDOT likes us shutting down Highway 80.
That could be an issue. I could see that could be a problem.
But they let us because, it's almost a 75-year tradition.
Sure.
So they still let us do it for 2 hours out of, the second Saturday of the year in December. So we do that there again, just small town charm. We have the Shriners come, with their clowns and their horseback riders and motorcycles and go-karts. It's really fun. It's really a fun day in Terrell.
The thing that has always been kind of a habit for me, and I think this kind of formed early on before I ever even had the thought of Expedition Texas. It was something I would do because sometimes when you're coming back and forth, going to Dallas or doing whatever you have to do up that way, you stay on the interstate and you don't really pay attention. But a lot of times if you're trying to get somewhere and you're in a hurry, you're trying to get there the fastest way. But a lot of times on the way home, I would always get off and in Terrell, go through downtown and go through all the small towns on the way back from there to East Texas, just because I loved it. It's like a glimpse at the towns that you don't see that part of the town
and
from the highway.
Food.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot going on, and a lot that you're missing if you just stay out there on the interstate. So
I agree.
And you guys have plenty of awesome things out on the interstate too. Of course, the big outlet mall is out there. All the Buc-ee's fans stop in there.
And we have Crossroads Market Center out there, and you got great places to stay there as well.
Yeah,
have some hotels.
But I definitely say spend some time. Take your time sometimes when you don't have to be somewhere fast. Take your time and enjoy the roads, enjoy the town, especially towns like Terrell. And what's the best way for folks to get information on all the events and all the things coming up, maybe even how to be a part of all the great things going on in downtown Terrell? How do folks do that?
Okay, highly suggest to follow us on social media.
Okay.
You discover Terrell, Facebook and Instagram. Also, Historic Downtown Terrell, Facebook and Instagram. And then Terrell Chamber of Commerce and Convention and Visitors Bureau as well. But highly suggest to follow us on social media or on the website. It's discoverterrell.com is our tourism website, our destination website. We also do a podcast. It's on Spotify.
Awesome.
It's Discover Terrell Podcast. So they can hear that. That comes out the first. We only do it monthly. It comes out the first of the month, and we showcase like it was BFTS because of all the stuff going on in November there. And then we took a calendar of events. So that's another way to get that information, and follow us on Spotify on that. We try to get information out a lot of ways.
You guys are very active. You do a lot.
We have our visitors guides and on most of the truck stops.
Hold that up in front of you there. We'll get this camera to get a shot of it there, Denise. Her camera there.
So we have those in the trucks. Not on the truck stops, but on the Texas Highway. Centers, visitor centers. But we'd love to see you in Terrell.
Y'all are always doing something. I love it. Well, folks, be sure to stop by and visit any chance you get in Terrell. And Sharon, thanks so much for coming and talking about the history. I know we love to talk about what's going on now, but of course, we gotta hit all that history stuff here on Expedition Texas, the podcast. So thanks for coming and sharing.
Sure.
You knew like all the big stuff, all the big points we wanted to hit there. So.
Well, yay! You tested me a little bit, but I was born in Terrell, so I have a little heads up.
You got a lot of lineage there too. It sounds like with the family like literally being in on the start of it there. So awesome! But thank you so much for being our guest here on Expedition Texas, the podcast. It is presented by Crazy Water, the best thing to ever come out of the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas. Get it on the bottled water shelf in your favorite grocery store. And of course, our thanks to the East Texas Oil Museum for also presenting our podcast here. So for Sharon Harper, I'm Bob Malden. We'll see you next time.